Not one, not two, not three, or even four, but five goalkeepers could be coming to Arsenal this summer. This is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for joining me and making, as I think I've already said that. Did I just say that again? I've just doubled up. I'm basically repeating myself as many as Arsenal are signing goalkeepers at this stage. But good morning to those joining us in the chat box. Thank you as always for doing so. Matt G, James, Blackshine, Maximius, Barry, Knowledge, Vivian, Kevin, Temi, Shari, Glenn, Steve, Martin, Stephen, Peter, Angela, Rob, Oderile, Blackshine, Paul, Rich, Answer, Paul, Rob, Paul as well, Natty, Tom, Mike, Granddaddy Gooner, Paul as well. So many Pauls in the chat today. And is Arsenal looking to pull some goalkeepers? I'm going to stop, I swear, with these goalkeeper analogies and quips, I promise. But it may happen after part one of the show. There may be some more before then. But please, if you haven't done so already, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Right, let's jump into today's stories, because I'm sure you are as curious as I am about who those five goalkeepers are. So let's start, of course, though, with David Ornstein's report that Lyon supposedly want to sign Katie McCabe this summer. Of course, Katie's been a huge part of the Arsenal women's side for many years, and Arsenal do not want to lose her. So the intention will be from Arsenal to keep hold of Katie McCabe, but it will be very much, I think, determined about what she wishes to do. She may have felt that, her time with Arsenal has come to something of a close, and that she's willing to take on a new challenge. There's been no indication that is the case, by the way. That's purely speculation. But let's keep our fingers crossed that Katie will be here for the brand new season, because she is, of course, an extremely important part of the squad, and at 28 years of age is in her prime. So hopefully she will be still with the side going into the brand new season. Mikel Arteta, however, has been speaking to the Arsenal website. You can check out the entire 13-minute interview on the Arsenal website, as I say. So I recommend you go and watch it there. I want to focus in, with this being the Arsenal Transfer Show, of course, though, on specifically like what he's been saying regarding the transfer market, because that's what we're all here for. We all want to know what Arsenal are aiming to do and how indeed they might be looking to move in the window. And he says it's a very different summer with the Euros and the Copa America. I think you can tell that everything is a bit slower. I think the market and the new rules that have been put in place have caused clubs to be more aware, and it's a bit delicate to do business in the way that we've done in the last few seasons. We have adapted to that, and we still want to deliver what we want in the transfer window, to have a much more competitive team and improve the squad in every area that we can. I hope that these words bring some calm, and I hope that these words bring some encouragement to those supporters that have been tweeting me saying that this is a disappointing window, an uninspiring window, a boring window, and that nothing's happening and Arsenal aren't doing good enough. Edu needs to get off his barbecue and start signing some players. There is so many factors that we have discussed time upon time upon time during the course of this, just 2-month period between June and July. And it's not even reached the full 2 months yet. And we know that the European Championships and Copa America have slowed things down. And we know that PSR has also played a big role in this. There is confidence not only from, what I've heard from speaking to people within the club, but also, of course, from what Arteta has said there. There is confidence that Arsenal will improve the squad. And they are going to do it not just in one area or two areas, that in many areas they want to improve things. Calafiori, as we've been talking about, there's no specific update on him today, but we know that Arsenal are very keen on him and that he's a key player in this market that they would love to sign. We know that central midfield is an area. Mikel Moreno continues to be mentioned as potentially a short-term option for Arsenal, with not necessarily the standout candidates. And that is another element of this transfer window, that the standout Declan Rice type deals that we have looked to do with Gabriel Jesus and Ben White and all these other players, Mark Partey and Gabriel, in the past 4 to 5 summers, the deals that we've done in those summers, there isn't those standout candidates this time round. And so Arsenal are needing to be clever, Arsenal need to be smart, and Arsenal need to be accurate and precise in the way in which they target potential players, with Mikel Moreno being a bit of a shrewd signing if indeed they can pull that one off. But there's been no further updates on him besides, of course, him being a player that Arsenal do like. But then you've got the wide area and maybe a centre forward and maybe an attacking midfielder, depending upon if Smith Rowe moves on. There's so many faculties of this window and things that can change. So be patient, which I know you're always told to be as an Arsenal fan. It's always be patient, be more patient. How long can I be patient for? But be more patient and let's wait and see what happens. One player, of course, that is now confirmed to be going along with Sambi Lokonga, who we talked about yesterday with that confirmation of the loan move to Sevilla, is Nuno Tavares. He has now agreed a 5-year contract with the Italian side and will join them on a loan with an obligatory purchase clause where Arsenal will get around 9 million euros plus add-ons and plus a sell-on clause, which could be really beneficial for the club and could end up making Arsenal a profit in this move. So Arsenal have finally started to get the ball rolling on some of their outgoings, which is good. We're still expecting that Smith Rowe and Nketiah, Nelson could also move on. Ramsdale, Tierney. We've got Charlie Patino. We've already sold Mika Biereth. There's lots of players that could still move on from the club during this window, and we'll have to wait and see how indeed those moves transpire, and we'll be keeping you up to date with all of them as and when and if they happen. Now, moving into incomings, Mark Varwijk, very well-connected Dutch reporter out there in the Netherlands, reporting yesterday with the Telegraph that Arsenal have made a €400,000 bid for Tommy Setford, the 18-year-old Ajax goalkeeper and England youth international that we discussed on yesterday's show. That interest has been formalised and Arsenal have indeed made an offer to the sizable, massive Dutch side, Ajax, to try and sign the 18-year-old. There is said to be a pathway that they see for Setford with a long-term plan for the young English goalkeeper. Of course, there is the attraction of having potentially a homegrown player in the group. Just double checking quickly if indeed he counts as a homegrown player. Because, of course, what you need to do is spend 3 years with the, I suppose if he signed at 18 years of age, he would, of course, count towards that. But he spent his youth career with Ajax and he's been there for quite some time because he was actually born in the Netherlands. So if he was to sign for Arsenal now, and was to play with the ages of 18, 19, 20, would, of course, count as homegrown in the end. So if indeed Arsenal sign him at this age, by the time he turns 21, I think he would count towards that homegrown quota, which obviously would be very much of a benefit to Arsenal. But I'd need to get that double checked. So don't quote me on that just yet. But €400,000 bid for the young goalkeeper makes him potentially the third goalkeeper behind David Raya and Lucas Nyland, of course. Now, the fourth goalkeeper, as we all very well know, is Dan Bentley of Wolves. No updates so far on whether or not Dan Bentley will indeed be the subject of a second bid. Arsenal had their £50,000 bid turned down by Wolves with the expectation that they would want significantly more than that in the context of what a £50,000 bid was. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if Arsenal do go back for the Wolves 30-year-old who they see as a third choice goalkeeper. But the fifth goalkeeper is Joan Garcia, the Espanyol goalkeeper. Arsenal are still interested. Arsenal would still be looking at signing Joan Garcia even if they landed Dan Bentley, but only if Aaron Ramsdale leaves. And that is the big kind of factor in all of the goalkeeping moves that Arsenal might make during this window. Aaron Ramsdale's future remains to be up in the air. Arsenal's valuation is considerably higher than what clubs are seemingly willing to pay. They want well upwards of £30 million as an absolute minimum. £30 million is kind of the asking price. But there simply are not the clubs out there that are looking to sign goalkeepers of that caliber and that price that don't already have goalkeepers of a very good standard, which makes it a very difficult window for Ramsdale to find his next move. There is a scenario where what Ramsdale has said he doesn't want, which is another season like last season, happens again, and that he may not indeed find that. Is there a potential chance he could leave the club on loan? It would be surprising. To my understanding, it's not something Arsenal particularly want to do, because if they do move Ramsdale on it, they want it to be a significant sale and they want to make profit on Ramsdale. So who cost them £24 million with add-ons up to 30. So I think that it's something that Arsenal are going to have a difficulty in sorting out. But Joan Garcia is seen as a very liked character by Iñaki Kena, the Arsenal goalkeeping coach. So will indeed he be at Arsenal along with David Raya, along with Lucas Nyland, and along with Dan Bentley, and along with Tommy Setford? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's a goalkeeping bonanza today. So let us know your thoughts on the goalkeeping situation and Arsenal's very clear intent to refresh the entire goalkeeping setup of the club. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where we jump into the chat box and tackle some of your questions. So if you do indeed have any that you'd like to discuss in today's show, now is your time to do that very thing. So let's jump into the chat, shall we, and tackle some of these questions. Maggie says, Tom, has there been any interest in Charlie Patino? It's been a very quiet thread, this story. Of course, as we know that Patino has 1 year left on his Arsenal contract. He spent the last 2 seasons on loan with Blackpool and with Swansea. They haven't gone amazingly well. Blackpool was a decent loan. Swansea has been a bit of a frustration with the amount of minutes he's been restricted to. And ultimately, what we are doing is we're hoping to see some interest grow in him over the next few weeks that might see him get the permanent move that he and it seems, his long-term plan foresees. Because he's not going to find a pathway into the Arsenal midfield at the moment. It doesn't look like. The intention to leave on a permanent deal was there last summer, and now he has even less time on his contract. Value-wise, Arsenal are going to struggle to make much more than they got for McCabe ultimately. So let's wait and see what happens with Charlie Patino. But it remains an open transfer situation with not much news regarding any potential suitors, which I know was your original question. So at the moment, there's been very little in the way of public knowledge of who is looking at Patino. But that could change in a day. So if anything does change, you know that we'll be talking about it. Gage says, how soon would a signing have to happen for the player to be available for the US tour? Of course, players can sign during Arsenal being away on the US tour. So they could sign for Arsenal on the 23rd and play Bournemouth on the 24th. Players are fit. They're constantly with their clubs, maintaining fitness. They'll be returning to pre-season training next week. To my understanding, I think some of the players, if not back already, return on Monday. And that'll be happening at other clubs around both the country and Europe, of course, as well. So it's not a case of they have to be signed up to play certain games at a certain time. It's pre-season friendlies. It's very lax in terms of restrictions, and it's not Premier League games, etc., or qualifiers. So, you could sign on the 23rd and play Bournemouth on the 24th, to my knowledge. Whether or not that would happen is another question, but I don't see any restrictions stopping any players from joining up with the squads, because if you sign players, they can join the group. There's not a specific set number, I don't think, of beyond what the plane can carry, places there. So, let's see. And of course, players could be sold whilst they're on the trip. We've seen players like Lucas Torreira. I remember when he left Arsenal, he wasn't part of the team that, of course, did go to the US, but joined up later and then was sold whilst in the US, despite completing some training sessions with the Arsenal first team. So, it's a very open-ended situation. And says, Tom, I know I'm probably wrong. I don't say that. You're definitely right. No, I'm joking. But I feel like the signings of Rice and Havertz are causing a headache to our recruitment team, as they might be a little perplexed on what profiles to sign next. It's an interesting point. There's no confusion really in our recruitment team. We know what we want. The only confusion and challenge this window is the market itself. Rice presents us with obviously a world-class, in my opinion, option as a 6 or an 8. Havertz has presented himself as a very competent and successful centre forward option, with how he's produced the numbers to put himself into a category of centre forwards that are amongst the best in the league at the moment. As we've talked about, were he Arsenal's penalty taker, he would have finished second in the Golden Boot race last season, for context. So think about it like that. When I think about somebody like Havertz, I think he gives you actually more options. Players of that level of versatility and variability give Arteta and Arsenal plenty of thinking to look at other targets that they might wish to sign, or other areas that they thought they wouldn't sign in. Havertz changed the minds of people at Arsenal so that the striker position no longer was as big of a priority as it was. Hence why there was an interest in a player like Benjamin Sesko, who was 20 years old and seen as a bit of a market opportunity. So I think that's ultimately opened things up wider for us. By the way, for those that think as well that there is any, I saw a comment yesterday saying that Declan Rice's transfer has impacted Arsenal's capacity to spend this window. I mean, any signing Arsenal make affects the capacity to spend because you've had an outlay, but there is no restrictions really on Arsenal spending this summer. They don't need to sell to buy. They would need to sell to buy like a monumental signing, like a Declan Rice £105 million type signing, but there aren't really that type of profile on the market this summer anyway. So Arsenal are very comfortable in what they're looking to do during this window. Walking Man says, if Ramsdale stays at Arsenal, he needs more game time. Given the cups and the group stage of the Champions League, he's a top goalkeeper and can be trusted. Of course, he would get the cup competitions. We would expect him to. I don't know how many of the Champions League games he would get, if any. He did play in that PSV game, you might remember, in the final group game of the Champions League last season. But it's an extended Champions League run, and Champions League games are more important during this season. It's worth pointing out. Mikel Arteta actually was asked about the Champions League situation on that interview, which I recommend you go and check out on the Arsenal website. Ben says the season starts in 5 weeks. Based on what the journos have been saying, with their Arteta and Edu being comfortable with their plans, there had better be some movement soon. As I've mentioned before, yes, the season starts in 5 weeks, but there is no need to rush into anything in this market. There is no need to just jump on a transfer for the sake of it. Is there a benefit to signing players earlier? Absolutely. Does Arteta want players to come through the door sooner? Yes. This isn't a choice of Arsenal on the basis of, we're going to wait because we think that's the best option for the sake of it. The reason why Arsenal haven't done any business as of yet is because of, obviously, the two key factors being PSR and the summer tournaments that are on. But the third factor is the big one, which is, as I've mentioned and continue to mention, this is not an easy market, this window. This is not a standout market for options and targets. And so if you are at a level where you are trying to close a 2-point gap to 90-plus point Manchester City, where you have already broken records and still not been able to win the league despite doing those major achievements, you are going to have to make signings that are near, if not perfect. And you cannot do that by rushing them. So market opportunities that may come up in the window later on could be better than the market opportunities that the clubs see now. And they may be willing to wait on some of those profiles because something better could come up later on in the window. Arsenal signed Thomas Partey on the final day of the transfer window. A player that's been as useful to us as Takehiro Tomiyasu was also signed on deadline day. Jorginho was signed on the last couple of days of the January transfer window. Has been an incredibly impactful player for us. Some of these players are not available at certain earlier points in the window and then become available based upon some dominoes that may fall. And that's another point, is that usually transfer dominoes kick off a run of different moves around the continent. And because of that, what we ultimately see sometimes is that if it's a slow start, those dominoes haven't yet fallen. So we need to wait until they start to move and other clubs start to sign players and start to free up space for other players to leave, because Arsenal are now in the market for the top players in the world and some of the top talents in the world. And some of those players are already at some of the biggest clubs in the world. So it takes them doing some business to free up some of those big talents that may indeed need to be or want to move on, but ultimately those clubs need to find replacements first. And so it creates a very difficult situation. Arsenal are deliberate and strategic in what they do, and the result of that has seen them build a squad that achieved 2 points off Man City and record-breaking numbers in the league last year and a record-breaking win percentage. Let's not get so uppity and stretch the balance out too much so that we sign players for the sake of it just to appease some fans that are impatient and then get the wrong players through the door. John says, do you think Kivior and Zinchenko will both be at the club at the start of the season? Do I think they will both be at the club? I'm going to go no. If you're going to put me on the spot, I didn't even mention Kivior earlier on in my in that feeling of it. So yeah, I don't think so. I think one of them may be gone. But we'll have to wait and see who it is. And if I'm right, that's not based. Well, it is based on some knowledge, but it's not. I'm not saying yes. One of them will definitely be gone. It's more just that feeling. Of I think one of them may go. Heavyweight says, Tom. We have signed more keepers under Arteta than strikers. What are we doing here? Should we have kept Martinez and sold Leno when we had the chance? I don't really know what the issue is, because last summer, a team that under Arteta has signed more goalkeepers than they have strikers, scored more goals in the league than the Invincibles. So I don't really know what the question is, to be honest, at all. I'm not really sure what it is. Heavyweight continues by saying, Tom, let me get this straight. If Eddie Nketiah goes, assuming he does, we've only got 2 strikers, which we don't which we don't have faith that Jesus will stay for the rest of the season. Fan base don't think so. I think Jesus will be with us for the rest of the season. If it's about fit, whether he stays fit, obviously that's a different question. But actually, it's not 2, it's 3, because Trossard is also another centre forward option for Arsenal, and a very good one. That he's produced some excellent numbers for Arsenal at centre forward. So it's worth pointing out there are 3 centre forward options at the club, and there's also the same people that are moaning about Arsenal not signing a striker will be the same people that moan that Chido Obi Martin leaves because he doesn't see a pathway into the first team. It's a case of not being able to have it all. We've sold Mika Bireth. I think Keon Edwards is potentially seeking an exit from Arsenal as well, as Arsenal's under 21 centre forward option. So we're trying to create this pathway. If you sign a striker for the sake of signing a striker, and I'm not looking at anyone really in this market besides Gyökeres, I think, really. I mean, other options like Isak simply isn't viable. I wouldn't personally spend the money it would take to get Osimhen through the door. So there is this contradiction going on here, and we need to make sure that we've got the right balance. And again, that comes from making shrewder moves in the market, which we've continued to do as well. Philip says, what's delaying the signing of Calafiori? He's on holiday, Philip. So that obviously does delay things somewhat. There's no rush with this. Arsenal are very confident. Calafiori wants Arsenal. There's no rush to do this deal. There is also, as David Ornstein has pointed out, there is still necessarily some people in the club hierarchy that supposedly need to be somewhat convinced that Calafiori is the right move. There's very much Arteta's push to sign the player, it seems. So let's see. But I wouldn't worry about this, mate. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and he'll arrive at the club. So you don't need to worry about that at the moment. Ben says, anyone see the UEFA rankings? West Ham 16th and higher than Barcelona is incredible to me. We really need to win a European title of any kind ASAP. Ben, I don't think you need to worry, mate. I don't think anyone's using UEFA coefficient rankings as kind of a bragging rights. West Ham, of course, won the UEFA Conference League, which gave them an awful number of UEFA coefficient points. Coefficients may become more relevant, of course, as if Arsenal were worse. And what I mean by that is if you look at some of the clubs that are finishing certain positions in the table, they may not get called up to certain tournaments. They may not get called up to future Club World Cups. Arsenal will be, looking to be in a position where they are doing that. And if we continue to be in the Champions League and continue to push through the Champions League, we will rise up those rankings very quickly. So I wouldn't worry too much about that at the moment. Kuro says, unpopular opinion, but I feel Trossard is one of the best finishers. I mean, it's not unpopular, mate. He is the best finisher at this club. Leandro Trossard is our best finisher. If there is a position where I want a player to score a goal, I want the ball landing at Trossard's feet. Yes, people will point out the Aston Villa game. I get it. Big chance, didn't get it, good save. Could have been a better shot. The best strikers in the world miss chances. But he is, without question, the best finisher at Arsenal. And has scored some massive, massive goals for us. Like, if you're looking at the games we've played, you're talking about a guy that scored the winning goal against Liverpool, scored against Bayern Munich, scored against Porto, and really important times for us in those games. Scored at Chelsea to level the game at 2-2 at Stamford Bridge this season. He scores in big moments. He turns up in big moments. And he was our second highest, I think, goal scorer last season. And yet I had someone send me a comment the other day with their ins and outs, and Trossard was on the out list of their players. It's somehow Trossard still hasn't convinced everybody. I don't know how you couldn't be convinced by Trossard as a signing. Trossard's been one of the most successfully shrewd pieces of business that Arsenal have done under Mikel Arteta. And he is ultimately going to be an important part of this team moving forwards. There won't be any hangover from the Euros. Yes, there were some issues with Tedesco in the Belgian camp, but Belgium had a pretty terrible tournament in the end. I don't think anyone really covered themselves in much glory in that Belgian side. He didn't play too many games in the end anyway for that to change anything. So I don't think that will have affected things. Arteta looks at players on merit, on what they do for Arsenal and what they do in training, not what they do for their national side. So if you're worried about how he might have played at the Euros, you don't need to be. Soup says, I know this has been mentioned before many times, but it seems more relevant now. If we can't get a midfielder in this summer with the signing of Calafiori, will we end up moving Zinchenko into midfield? No, I don't think we will. And the reason why I don't think we will is because I think we have enough to not do that. There may be a situation if we don't sign a midfielder, then maybe Partey doesn't leave. I'd be shocked if we sold Partey and didn't sign a midfielder. I'd be very, very, very surprised if we if we didn't sign a midfielder and Partey left. But you've got Odegaard, Smith Rowe still here. If he goes, I think maybe they'll move for an Eze type or maybe an Olmo type. You've got Jorginho, you've got Vieira, you've got Rice, and of course, Havertz can play in the midfield should you need him to. And then there's some young players coming through. I want to see minutes given to Ethan Nwaneri this season. There's potential that Miles Lewis-Skelly could be given some opportunities this season. And he certainly deserves it. Both of them deserve it with the talent level that they've got. So let's, I think we need to chill somewhat on that, because there are talents coming through, and we can't moan at, Arsenal and Arteta and those for not giving youth a chance, then say, oh, we need to sign more and more and more and more players, but they then block those pathways for those young talents as well. So I want to see these young guys given chances at the same time as I want to see signings made, but I'm not too concerned about it at the moment. Finley says, would you expect Chido to be playing today? Would I expect to see Chido? Oh, yes, of course. So today, there is a game against Boreham Wood. An Arsenal, I think it's today. An Arsenal 11 side will indeed take on a Boreham Wood team. That's at 3:00 this afternoon. So it's, even though it's an Arsenal under 21s game, you never know who might be involved. They always call it an Arsenal 11 against Boreham Wood. We've seen in the past sometimes some senior players play that game. I'd be shocked if there are any, but you never know. And maybe Chido Obi Martin will get a chance. But I don't know if I don't know if he's still on his holidays or if he's back yet, because he was playing in the England under 17s, the Denmark under 17s and the under 17s tournament. Nwaneri, of course, was also at that tournament with England, and Nwaneri I've seen back at training. So I think that I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to be called up, but he obviously hasn't been a part of the under-21s team. He's been a part of the under-18s team. So unless he's being promoted in the under-21s, maybe he'll not be involved. Maybe he'll be on the bench. Maybe it's a part of these contract talks that are going on. We'll have to wait and see. But yes, that's a game. I don't know if you can watch it or not. Let me have a quick check for you and see if there's any information about whether or not it can be watched. Information on how fans can attend the fixture will be published in due course. The game takes place on the 13th. Nothing there about if it can be watched or not. No, that's from 2019. 3 days ago. Boreham Wood. Our youngers. Oh, hold on. I can see a couple of links. How to follow. You can attend the game here. However, if you cannot attend, we will provide updates throughout the game on our Academy Twitter. Okay, so you can't watch it. Which is a shame. There would have been a great opportunity. It's I don't know if there's like any legalities or policy in place which means that you can't show them. But I would say that it's a shame that these games at times aren't more publicized, and there's not more that goes into showing them. Now, there may be legislation in place that means they can't, which is fair enough. But I wish there was more access for fans to watch youth games. It would get people a lot more educated on these young players. And I wouldn't have to tackle so many questions necessarily on why isn't Ruel Waters starting in the Arsenal first team, despite the fact he's signed for Luton. And, I think maybe struggled to get many minutes there as well. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. And speaking of which, Vanaduti says, with Waters going to Luton, isn't this proving Arteta right? Because no other Premier League team wanted to sign him. The ability he needed to break through is far higher than even a couple of seasons ago. It's worth pointing out Amaro Dubry did sign for Brighton, but they have a lot of wide players as well, and he may struggle to break in there. We'll have to be cautious and attentive to that. But I think the Ruel Waters move to Luton is perhaps a showcase of, where he's at. I don't know how many minutes he'll play. I don't know if he will play. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that going into the new season. But yes, there is some indication there of where we have been at with some of these talents. And I think there is always that temptation and that trap of overhyping certain players in the squad as well, which needs to be talked about. Michael says, yeah, it's my first time watching live. I watch every day, and I've also started our own channel as well. So thank you, Michael. Very much appreciate you tuning in, and thank you for doing so. Andy says, I feel like Adam Wharton is our main signing for the summer, 25-26, when Partey and Jorginho leave. I'm thinking ahead, Tom. It would be a great signing. He's a very talented midfielder for Palace. And of course, I think it's been unfair that he's not really got any minutes at all for England during this tournament. But they are in a final now, so I guess you can't begrudge it too much. Albrecht says, when do you expect Saka, Rice and Ramsdale and Raya to join in pre-season? I think they'll get an extended break. It may be that we don't see them until they return from the tour. It could be that they play in the Bayer Leverkusen and the Lyon games. So there is a chance that they may not even be in the United States. They may join up late. They can obviously decide to cut their summer short and their break short if they want to. They have that right to be able to do that and control, their holiday break. But let's see. But it may be that they miss the entire tour and are not back yet until closer to those Emirates friendlies that we'll see next month. Heavyweight says, Tom, my point is that if we kept Martinez, who does what Arteta likes, playing out from the back, we wouldn't be wasting time every season on goalkeepers and focus on weakness. We're not wasting time every season with goalkeepers. Arsenal signed their goalkeeper of starting choice last summer with David Raya, and of course have signed a permanent because they included the option in that contract for the forthcoming season as well. Yes, we could have kept Martinez. Yes, that might in hindsight look like a good deal to have done, but it's not really affected us, is it? Let's be honest. Arsenal have never been, for the last, since the Invincibles, this competitive at the top of the table. So it's hardly affected us at all. But there you go. Let's go to, you see, I recognise names in the chat box now when they try to fool me about whether or not there's volume. So see you later. Rob says, could you see Arteta developing Calafiori into a Partey replacement? Great tall defender, brings out the ball, good passer. Feel as though he could develop him and or Timber into that multi-type role. I think they will be playing those multi-type roles in left back and centre mid, but I don't think that they will move into midfield other than tactically and stylistically. But on paper, I don't think that's going to work at all. Are the Deers following me, Omar? No, back home now. So no Deers. No Deers here. Gage says, has there been any news on the mystery German player? Nope. Ajmal says, how did City manage to sell some random guy to Ipswich for 15 million? We're struggling to get even 10 million for players with experience in the Premier League. Yeah, how much did they sell Sergio Gomez for? Just asking a question. Wonton Soup says, with Rice and Saka going all the way in the Euros, it's even more important we get competition for them so they can be rested during the season. And it's also very important. And we need to manage their players' rest also very, very importantly as well. Right, that is going to end today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning on the big day here in England as the European final takes place at 8 p.m. UK time tomorrow night. I'll, of course, be bringing you an update not only tomorrow morning, but of course also on Monday morning in the fallout of whatever happens. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. Luke, thank you for the reminder. Please, if you haven't dropped a like on the video, please do help us to reach 1K every single day on the channel as we continue this as much as we can. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. I will be back with you very, very soon. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.